Welcome to another episode of The Dissection. Today we are cutting through this particular topic. There has been a clash of words between Helen Zille, the DA federal chairperson, and Fikile Mbalula, the ANC secretary general. This particular clash of words adds to other clashes with senior ANC leaders and Helen Zille. In July, late in July, Sunday Times reported that Gwede Mantashe had actually warned DA federal leader Helen Zille against acting like a parallel president. He actually called her behavior the biggest threat to the survival of the government of national unity. And when officials in his office were asked about this, they said that he was referring to Helen Zille's public statements on social media and in media interviews. They cited an interview that Helen Zille gave to Newsroom Africa in which she said the president does not control all the ministries and that ministers have relative autonomy to run their departments. This has been a point of tension between the Democratic Alliance and the ANC. And I actually made a whole video about that particular tension. You can find it on the channel. And what Gwede Mantashe said, this is what he said: the only worry when I open social media is that we have a parallel president called Helen Zille outside who wants DA ministers to account to her. She's going to collapse it if she continues, because we're not going to have a parallel government run by Helen Zille. There's only one president here, and that president is Cyril Ramaphosa, and that's it. Ministers in the government must understand that external interference must be corrected. And these were the comments that were made by Gwede Mantashe. So this issue of interviews causing tension between DA and ANC is something that has already been a reality. And we know Gwede Mantashe, for example, has noted the social media commentary and comments made by Helen Zille. Yesterday, she attended another event and made more controversial comments. The event that she attended was hosted by the Friedrich Naumann Foundation. The Friedrich Naumann Foundation offers political education in Germany and abroad. It is funded by Germany's Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development. And the foundation is related to the Free Democratic Party and promotes individual freedom and classic liberalism. At this particular event, she said a mouthful. Now, here's what Helen Zille said, part of what she said.
So from the beginning, Cyril Ramaphosa came up with this notion of a government of national unity, which he thought would be a better way of selling the concept of coalition to his own party. Now, this, of course, is not a government of national unity, because a government of national unity brings all parties together, which would have had to include the EFF and the MK party, which it did not. But it still gave the president the fig leaf he needed to bring in all sorts of smaller parties to say, I'm not in a coalition with the DA. Now, the truth is that we are actually in a coalition, because a coalition means that if a party withdraws from the coalition, the government falls. Now, none of the other parties, none of the other 9 parties in the coalition have any leverage at all on the ANC or on the government. They can pull out tomorrow, it'll make no difference. And when you've got no leverage, it means that you're basically a captive in that government. The DA will never be a captive because we have got leverage, huge leverage, and we've now got important ministries and other things. But these other parties are there at the gift of Cyril Ramaphosa. And if they irritate him, he could kick them out tomorrow.
What happens if Cyril Ramaphosa is removed?
That's a very important question, and it's a very serious question. We know that the ANC is not averse to removing or recalling, as they call it, their presidents. And I'm not sure when the next ANC Congress is. I think it might be in 2027, but I'm not 100% sure. I think it's in 2027. The ANC also does polling, and they're getting good at it. So they knew the numbers before they went into this election. That's why the president had his speech on SABC, in which we say he abused the platform for a party political speech. And we're still continuing with our court case on that, because I'm not going to give up all of those crucial constitutional defenses just because we're in a coalition with it. So the ANC does its polling and it knows that its trump card is Cyril Ramaphosa. If they lose Cyril Ramaphosa, they will go down, if they're lucky, to 25% or 20%. And so they've lost Jacob Zuma, etc. But the idea is to somehow bring Jacob Zuma back into the fold. And Jacob Zuma was very clever. He never resigned his ANC membership, but he's now been kicked out. So he's now out, and the EFF is now out. And the only risk that they would find is if the ANC plummeted and then went into a coalition with the EFF and the MK. But I think most people in the ANC understand what that would actually mean for South Africa's economy. One of the strongest things that we had in the negotiation, the strongest lever the DA had by far, was the value of the rand. Every time things were going well, the rand went up, 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 up. Every time things went badly, the rand plummeted. The bond market was exactly the same. It was extraordinary. I've tracked the value of the rand against the timeline of the negotiations, and it's an absolute correlation. Once, I think it was on the 11th of June, when we were supposed to have a negotiation, the ANC just didn't rock up. And we waited the whole day and they didn't come. So I just told a journalist, and they wrote about it in the newspaper the next day. The rand right down. Now, I didn't do that to get the rand down. I do that to say to the ANC, don't mess us around, Don't mess us around.
Here are my thoughts about what Helen Zille said, specifically the information in the clips. Number one, she is putting her ministers in a compromising position, the DA ministers. They have to work with ANC deputy ministers. They have to work with director generals, and they have to work with other ministers in the cabinet. When you give views which are disparaging of other ministers, which are disparaging of other political parties, at a collegial and office level, you compromise the workflow within that particular cabinet. You compromise the cohesion of that particular cabinet. You're telling other political parties that they are dispensable, that they are plus ones, that you are the main guest to the event. All of those things are not things that are helpful to keeping the unity and the workplace cohesion of that particular cabinet. Number two, she's damaging the party communications, her own party communications, because they've been speaking about how they are part of this GNU. They've been trying to show that they are working together with Ramaphosa. But if you are a very serious and important leader within the Democratic Alliance and you are speaking outside the side of your mouth the way that Helen Zille is, what that does is it actually undermines what your professional communicators are actually doing. Because Helen Zille is not some, side commentator about the DA. She is a person who has been critical and important in its conversations, and she's not speaking on the sidelines as a general member or supporter of the party. She is in many ways the essence of the party, one of the keystones of the party. Number three, the comments that Helen Zille made actually show that she agrees with the statements that were made by Jacob Zuma, that this grand coalition is not a government of national unity. It is a DA and ANC coalition. Now, the curious thing about this is that the media has run with the propaganda that was chosen by the Ramaphosa faction and continues to use a term that is not academically sound, and also one that is not even recognized by the negotiators of the very deal that brought the coalition into existence. Because Helen Zille was one of the negotiators of this particular coalition. And she knows, she's like, this thing is not, it's not a GNU. What are we doing? Who are we fooling here? This thing is a DA and ANC coalition. Now, the question then becomes, should the media then stop using this term? Should the media stop using this term? What do you guys think? I'm putting it to you because I try to use the term grand coalition or multi-party coalition because I think that's more accurate, that's more honest, that's more ethical. What do you think it should be called? By the way, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. Those subscriptions help YouTube know that you love this content and it helps others to find the channel. Like the video, comment, all of the good things, because that helps the channel grow. Thank you so much. Let's continue with the conversation. By the way, 75% of the people watching the video haven't subscribed yet. So it helps if you subscribe. Just press that thing. It's free. It's free. Just go there and then we can continue. Anyway, let's continue. So Helen Zille agrees with Zuma. Isn't that interesting? Because when Zuma said this, some people said, no, he's crazy, he's doing this, he's doing that. But to be honest and to be fair, he was correct when he said it, because objectively it's correct. It's not a government of national unity. It is a grand coalition. It's a multi-party coalition, but it's not a government of national unity. Number 4, Helen Zille is right that the ANC is going to have big problems when Cyril Ramaphosa is no longer at the top of the ticket. This is really the ticking time bomb within the ANC. And many people understand that, you know, the business sector, the funders, the donors, all of the people who have been really giving the ANC some space have really been doing so because Cyril Ramaphosa has been somebody that they worked with, that they supported, that they knew for a very long time. And if you know his history, you know that he was in corporate South Africa, really building his brand, becoming this darling of the middle class and the elites of South Africa. And that is something that has helped the ANC to be able to maintain some support. But even with him, they've lost a lot of support, and they're in a very tricky position. They're in a very tricky position because he is in his second term. And at some point, especially at the point at which you go to conference, the dynamics shift dramatically. So she's right that there are going to be problems. Her value proposition is therefore that the DA is the only party organized enough to inherit the money that goes into politics, to inherit any of the support. It's going to be the alternative. She thinks that the DA is going to grow. I'm not persuaded that the DA is going to grow. I think that as this coalition goes into a period where it's no longer in its honeymoon period, the DA may even be the ones who walk away from this thing themselves. Because right now we're still very early. We're only 60 days into this thing. So to project that you're going to grow in 2029 as a result of where things are now, it's a very premature, but it's also forward planning. You lock in a lot of money, you lock in a lot of donors at this point, which is why she's doing it. By the way, the DA, I must give Helen credit. She understood the dynamics that were going to play out in 2024. And this is why I made a video earlier where I said that the ANC and the DA would go into coalition. And that video is still on my page. You can check it out on this YouTube. And she spoke and made comments in 2019 that 20% is a powerful position. It's going to be a position that allows the DA to enter into coalition with a shrinking ANC. So I wouldn't take everything that she says here as not being a viable strategy, especially if she locks in money and blocks other political parties from being able to get money. They may very well be able to squeeze out rivals to the DA brand, such as Rise Mzansi, Build One South Africa, Action SA. And as the ANC falls, they may very well be able to grow this political entity. So that's their value proposition. But I want to now talk about something which really concerned me about everything that Helen Zille said. And I think it's worth really considering very seriously. Helen Zille says that the strongest lever or leverage that the party had was the value of the rand. That's what she said. She seems to imply that her party, its networks or donors, have some control of the currency of South Africa, and they were able to leverage that control to force the ANC into this coalition deal. What do you think? Do you think that's a fair interpretation of the commentary that she made around the rand and how it was leveraged? Do you think that maybe these are the comments of somebody who's trying to claim more power and influence that they don't actually have? Right? So that could be one interpretation or another interpretation. But if she is correct that they had leverage through the rand, maybe because they could speak to the owners of big banks such as Rupert through FNB and Michelle Leroux, Capitec, if she is correct, then the question I want to ask is whether this coalition is really a will of the people or the will of the donors and the bank owners who are being called the markets, right? Is it the will of the people or is it the will of the donors and the bank owners, some of whom are the same people, by the way? We saw how Capitec benefited immensely from this coalition. Its value went up by billions, and its founder is a major DA donor. And I covered this recently. Since the 30th of May, when the election results were confirmed, the JSE's banking index has added 180 billion in value. Leading the gains was Capitec, which went up by 26% in value. First Rand, which went up by 21% in value. Standard Bank, which went up by 20% in value. Nedbank, which went up by 10% in value. And Absa, which went up by 8%. Capitec's gain over the period represents an increase in market cap of 56 billion rands. First Rand, a gain of 60 billion rand. And it's the largest of the big banks in terms of market cap, with a valuation of 440 billion. Standard Bank added 48 billion in value in that period. Nedbank 6.7 billion, Absa 9.7 billion. So the banks benefited a lot from this particular coalition. We saw how News 24 was giving the opinions of chief investment officers who were pushing for this particular DA-ANC coalition. So there was a media narrative that was being constructed, right, through the voice of the markets, and the voice of the markets was being articulated by these chief investment officers from Momentum and other places. I also made videos on that. Now, it's critical to think about this kind of power. Is this healthy power? Is this political power that a political party, is this economic power that a political party should have? Think about it. She's suggesting that the DA and its network has the ability to hold the public at ransom with the currency, to do its bidding, while the political party only has 22% of the vote. Think about that. Think about what I just said. She's suggesting that the DA and its network of supporters and donors have the ability to hold the public at ransom with the currency to do its bidding, while only holding 22% of the vote. Is that democracy? Is that defending the Constitution? What do you think? What do you think? There's more that Helen Zille spoke about during this particular event, including the issue of Renato House and how the EFF is the enemy. But I'm not going to focus on that in this video. Fikile Mbalula actually responded today, and this is what he had to say.
That is it. We are a leading party. We are the largest party. We are the biggest expression of the will of the people. We are not going to be engaged in polemics with Helen Zille and whoever wishes to do so. If they want to engage in that terrain, they can go on their own, but Assisi, we're not coming to engage in polemics and about who leads, who doesn't lead. The question is, can the ANC do better with the 40% and the leadership it has had in terms of safeguarding power and leading the people of South Africa and doing the right thing? The country is stable. That is the reality. Everything is on track. Government is running. That's what is important for us. The reason we are meeting here is to ensure that we consolidate that power and we deepen the National Democratic Revolution. What is the National Democratic Revolution? It is redress, to continue that work within government and deliver for the people of South Africa. And that's what our government is going to do. You ask about NHI, you ask about Bella Bill. We want those things to happen and to happen as they've been signed into law. There are challenges. It wouldn't have stopped even if there was no JNU, DA and others wouldn't have stopped. And they are not going to stop. And stop being irritated by Zille every time he says he wants to see the ANC dead. That is his job. That is a job. And the DA, like all others who want to see the ANC gone, they say they eat the elephant piece by piece. But the elephant is not out.
Now, this is a very measured response from Fikile Mbalula. Typically, he would go in, he would also exchange insults, he would also, escalate the rhetoric and the drama. But it's very clear that he's been told that that's not going to work. And also, it seems that he has made a decision himself to be very measured. It seems like he is working to keep this thing together and is not necessarily going to be baited into having an exchange of words with Helen Zille as the ANC Secretary General. He is trying to stay the course and to have message discipline. It's quite amazing to see because typically, Fikile Mbalula is not the kind of leader who has message discipline. He can go off on a tangent like Trump at any given moment, but he didn't do that. It also looks to me like Fikile Mbalula, for his own personal political reasons, is now rebranding as a moderate, as a diplomat, as a statesman, and he's looking ahead to this post-Ramaphosa period, and is almost trying to show the markets, the donors, the Stellenbosch influencers who are very heavy in the donor circles that, hey, listen, we in the donor circles, you see people such as the Oppenheimers, you see Michel Leroux, the founder of Capitec. So these are big entities and you need their support in order to actually have a chance. So he's trying to brand and show that I'm moderate, I'm looking ahead, I can also play this, Mandela type of archetype that you guys like. So it looks as if he's choosing that as opposed to going into head-to-head exchanges with Helen Zille. Now, I do have some questions that I want to leave you guys with, and we can have a conversation in the comments. I'm coming into the comments as soon as I upload this video. Do you think that Helen Zille is helping or hurting her party? Do you think this coalition will go the distance, considering the kind of public spats that keep happening and the complaints of ANC leaders that I discussed yesterday, that the DA ministers are outshining their own ministers? Do you think that this particular coalition is going to go the distance all the way to the 2029 elections? What do you think? Let's have a conversation. I'm interested to hear what you guys think. Thank you so much to everyone who's supporting the channel, who's watching all of these videos, who's participating in the comments. I really appreciate you. This has been an episode of The Dissection. Till the next one,